for joining us to hear about the senior project this semester. So I'm just going to turn it right over to them for the presentation. That was it.
Hello everyone, welcome to Moravian College. I'm Alec Gerhardt. I'm one of the 11 seniors in the capstone class this semester, and we worked on a project, Alzheimer's IoT. Currently, over 5 million Americans suffer from Alzheimer's disease, and according to the National Institute of Health, it is the 6th leading cause of death in the United States. In 2015, over 15 million caregivers provided over 18 billion hours of unpaid care, and on top of that, they also spent on average $5,000 a year on that care. So for some families, that's a trivial cost, but for others, that could mean going hungry. All this becomes more problematic by the fact that we still don't have a cure for the disease. And one of the hardest parts about Alzheimer's is that our perception of the mental decline can seem to occur suddenly and much later than the actual start. The seemingly rapid deterioration of the patient's mental state usually starts with an incident, such as leaving a dog out overnight. Once the caregiver sees or hears about this incident, they can tend to think that the mental decline is very severe. Often at this point, though, is already well into full swing onto where the mental decline is. Earlier, the caregiver could have written this off as just symptoms of being old. But now they realize that the issue is a lot more serious and can sometimes over-presume what is needed and can actually go past where we are. This would be like putting your father into an old nursing home a couple of years too early. This transition is extremely hard on both the patient and the family, but what if this was easier? What if we could develop apps and tools to help the caregiver understand this decline? What if we made those apps easy to use, non-intrusive, and available on mainstream devices? For our senior capstone class this spring, a team of 11 students, alongside Dr. Coleman, partnered with professionals at Merck to develop a system to try to address this problem. The goal of our project was to create an Internet of Things approach that aging individuals can use in their homes and on their personal devices with dignity, respect, and independence, which can also give the caregiver the ability to use the same technology to ensure continuity of care and increased understanding of the patient's current mental state. Before we head into what our project encapsulates, we'd like to discuss a few examples on how technology can affect both the patient and the caregiver.
Okay, so in order to do this, let's introduce the parties involved. Tom is a 65-year-old father and grandfather, and he noticed over the course of the last several years that it's been a lot harder to recall simple things. He's worried, but he's not sure if these are just symptoms of age-related memory loss or maybe something more. So he talks to Pam. Pam is Tom's only daughter and caregiver. More recently, she's had to check up on Tom a couple times a week, and she's becoming concerned. She's noticed changes in Tom's mannerisms while noticing his frustration with his forgetfulness, and she concerns as possibly larger than just age-related memory recognition. There are several ways the communication between Tom and Pam could be assisted by technology in order to alter Tom's lifestyle as little as possible and to allow Pam to keep an eye on him without disrupting his daily routine. So assume Tom owns an Apple Watch. So he went to his last checkup with his physician, and he and his doctor set up a notification system that would remind Tom to take his medication. So he'll be alerted through the watch. He is also sent home the smart pill bottle that is configured and monitored by the physician's office. So every day, Tom's watch sends him a notification that it's time for him to take his medication. He goes over to his smart pill bottle, notices that the blue light in the pill bottle is also lit up, that it knows it's time for him to take his medication. He does so. The pill bottle records the time and sends a timestamp to a server located in Tom's home. This instance shows how the system can be used day to day by the patient alone, but the platform can be used in several different configurations and not just on the patient side. We'll look at some of the ways the system can be used by both the patient and the caregiver. Okay, so now let's say Pam purchases a smart home device for Tom and sets it up in his home. So now every day at 10 a.m., Tom's new home will speak out loud to him, telling him it's time to take his memory test. So Tom hears this notification and proceeds to activate the action in order to do so. Pam, during lunch or at any time during the day, at any location, can check a dashboard and see that score. We can also set up more notifications on the caregiver side. So fast forward, and now Tom is currently in the mid stages of his disease. After having wandered out of the house and becoming lost several times, he's agreed to let Pam know when he's going to leave the house. So Pam has arranged to receive a text message anytime that geofencing or home sensors indicate that Tom has left the house and hasn't notified her. So that way she can directly contact Tom and address the issue. But there are still more ways that the caregiver can receive notifications. Consider a different scenario where Tom isn't in such a concerning state. So Pam wouldn't like to receive nearly as many text messages. But she still wants to monitor Tom's behavior every day, so she arranges to receive a daily email outlining his day. This email would contain all the data collected from the system on Tom for that day in an easy to read manner. So, with all this info, Pam can choose to act accordingly or simply affirm that her father's had a great day. So as you can see, there's a great deal that can be done with our system. And what is done is really up to the user.
So to address what Charlie was getting at, what's really important to note about the previous stories is the two different ways in which Tom and Pam interacted with the technology. On the left-hand side, there are technologies where Tom had to do nothing at all after a little bit of initial setup. He simply flipped a few light switches, opened a door, opened a pill bottle, or walked around with his phone, and just like that, data about him and his whereabouts was passively generated. And then on the right side, there are technologies that Tom could take a more active role, assuming that he's receptive and able. Tom can elect to participate in taking memory tests, or he could participate in journaling verbally. Now, in a similar sense to this, the passive versus active interaction, there are also two different ways of receiving notifications, through push and pull notifications. On the left-hand side, we have technological mediums that can be used for push notifications. Pam can receive SMS updates every time something happens with Tom, or she can choose to have an email summary sent to her at the end of the day. Or she can even speak to her smart home device and ask, how's Tom doing? Of course, these methods are normally good ways to alert people, but as you can imagine, Tom may not want his life broadcast haphazardly, and Pam doesn't want a text message every time her dad opens the door. So this is where the right side comes into play. Pam's able to, at the end of the day, go to a web dashboard and see a summary of all the information on Tom. Or, like I said earlier, she can ask her smart home about it. Now that we've made these distinctions, let's move on to what we've actually done this semester.
So now that we've looked at how technology can advance communication between a patient and caregiver like Tom and Pam, this is what we've built. Currently, we have the patient side and the caregiver side. This is basically what the user sees. On the patient side, we have our Z-Wave sensors, which record the current state of the home, and we have the GPS tracking app, which runs in the background of the patient's phone. Both of these, as Josh said, are passive, so during the entire process, really, the patient doesn't have to interact with it. The other two, the journal and the mental exam, run through our smart home devices, whether it be the Amazon Echo or the Google Home, and those get pushed up to the server through those. Those do require active participation from the patient. We also have the ability to push notifications back to the patient through those smart home devices. So like Charlie had explained, it could be a reminder to take a medication or the mental exam. On the right-hand side, we see the caregiver. By default, we give the caregiver a dashboard. Through the dashboard, they can add emails or text phone numbers so that they can get email or text message alerts. We also have the Google Talk so that at certain times or on demand, the caregiver can receive audible notifications. So this is what the entire system looks like from a user's perspective, but it's not really as accurate as what the system actually works on. So here's our architecture. It's a really big diagram, but I'll break it down. Basically, we have the left side, on the left side of the API is our data generation. We have 4 endpoints currently, but if, for example, like Charlie said, Tom wants to add an Apple Watch to this, that addition would be pretty trivial, and that's why this project falls into the category of Internet of Things. On the right-hand side of the API, we see configurability and the way that the system can cater to what the patient and the caregiver wants. Starting at the top, the dashboard, it's pretty easy. It's an on-demand resource for caregivers and patients to see the most recent data. The caregiver app returns the most recent entry in a requested data set. The scheduler allows patients or caregivers to schedule a notification on a time or a date, and it can be a custom message or the most recent entry on a requested database. The event sender is sort of like the scheduler, but instead of on a schedule, it will push the most recent entry every single time there's a new entry. So as you can see, most of this diagram is encapsulated by a white box. This represents the local system. Currently, our system is running on that machine over there by the wall. And if you want to, so you can see things popping up on the screens or the TV back there. So that's what our system is, with the exclusion of the GPS tracking app, which runs on a phone. Each one of these items, except for the GPS, is contained in its own Docker container. For those of you who don't know what Docker is, it basically eliminates the setup and the configurability on the client side. So it makes it a little easier to deploy the system. Now, last but not least, we see this area. And this is how we output the notifications. For SMS, we use Twilio, which is a messaging service provider. For emails, we use Gmail. And for the Google Speak, it manifested itself through the Google Home. So here's the big picture, but as you can see, there's a lot of different pieces here. So we're going to break that down and look at each one of them individually.
So a large portion of our project has to do with data generation, and we're trying to achieve this while avoiding direct intervention into the patient's life. So to do this, we're trying to use things like GPS tracking, like I mentioned before, as well as monitoring electrical usage throughout the house and monitoring things such as like whether doors or windows are left open for long periods of time. These are passive ways of getting data, but we're also doing things actively, like getting the patient's mental state through mini mental exams or through daily journals that we do through the smart home devices we have up front. The purpose of this is to gain insight into the patient's life where it counts and allow us to see what's going on with the patient and whether or not they should see a doctor or not. This data is coming in from a lot of different angles, so let's go in depth with some of our apps that we're using to collect this data.
The GPS application is an important piece of our data generation aspect of our IoT implementation. Once installed on the patient's device, the application communicates the device location to a database every 5 minutes. Its functionality is entirely passive, requiring no user interaction once installed on the patient's device. This data can be consumed through the dashboard or pre-configured alerts for the caregiver. The GPS data can also be used to alert the caregiver when a patient leaves a designated area, such as their home. You can see in that little gray box up towards the search bar. The application is Android-based and consists of multiple services which detect device boot and start submitting data to the API automatically. In addition to the GPS app, the Z-Wave provides important data on the patient.
So as we mentioned before, a large portion of the data that we're getting from is through electrical usage and checking whether or not their doors and windows are open. To do this, we're using devices called Z-Wave. So for those of you who aren't familiar, Z-Wave is a series of smart home devices such as power outlets, switches, and door sensors that allow us to monitor different things as well as allowing people to automate home actions such as like turning off lights remotely, checking things like doors being open, windows being open. And they actually work on their own frequency, somewhat like Bluetooth, but its own frequency that actually works on a mesh network, meaning that say one device is too far away from its controller, if there's another device in between, it can kind of use that as a relay to connect to the next device. So the devices we're using are a switch, just like this, which allows us to monitor whether or not a device is being used. And so it's basic on-off, as well as, I don't know if you can see it here, there's a little white box in the corner of the door here. It's a door sensor. We're using it just to monitor whether the door is open or closed and send notifications based on that. So what we're doing to control this is we're using Home Assistant. So what Home Assistant is we have it running on a Raspberry Pi, and its original intention is to connect to all of the devices on a Wi-Fi network, or a lot of devices on a Wi-Fi network. But that isn't necessarily the same thing as Z-Wave frequency. So we were able to get a USB Z-Wave antenna to connect to the Z-Wave devices and access them through Home Assistant. So kind of reiterating what I just said, Home Assistant is our controller for these devices. So for us to get information from these devices, we wrote Python scripts that run off of a server and query information from the Home Assistant, which in turn queries information from the Z-Wave devices, and those return the information back to the Home Assistant. So their status, whether they're on or off, open or closed, things like that. And the Home Assistant will send that information back to the server, allowing us to store that data, monitor it, and later on analyze it. So this is like one of our big passive ways of gathering information, but we also have more active ways of gathering information through smart home devices.
So a significant part of our Alzheimer's IoT are smart home devices like the Google Home and the Amazon Echo. And these smart home devices are powered through intelligent personal assistants, the Amazon Alexa for the Echo and the Google Assistant for the Google Home. And these intelligent assistants allow for the users to query these devices and say things like, what is the weather today? Or what are the news reports today? And they also allow the user to tell these devices what to do, like make a to-do list with these things on it, or set an alarm for this time. Now for our Alzheimer's IoT, we actually created our own functionalities for these devices, namely actions for Google Home and skills for the Alexa. So for the Google Home, we developed a journal action. And this action allows for the user to talk to the Google Home and tell the Google Home what they did that day. So for example, they could say, I went for a walk, I went shopping, and I gave my dog a bath. And if the user didn't mention whether or not they have taken their medicine, the Google Home would then respond, did you take your medicine today? And the user can answer accordingly. Now, the user has a choice whether or not to send to our server the entire journal entry for that day, or whether they just want to send less detailed, today this patient went for a walk and went to the store, for more privacy, a more private way of doing things. So as I mentioned, after the user had told the journal what they did, whether or not they've taken their medicine, all that information is then pushed to our Alzheimer's IoT server running in the patient's home. So let's take a look a little bit in more detail about how this works. So the backbone of the action, the journal action, is actually hosted on API.ai, which is Google's cloud. But a lot of the functionality, or actually most of the functionality, is contained on our journal webhook that is running on our patient's Raspberry Pi. So when the user talks to the Google Home and tells the Google Home what they did that day, that entry is then forwarded up to API.ai, where the text parsing, or the speech-to-text is done, and also the activity parsing is done. So when the patient said, I went for a walk, that would be parsed into physical activity. And all this information is then forwarded to our journal webhook. But to deal with firewall issues, we actually used ngrok to provide a tunnel into our webhook. And once all of that information is in our webhook, the webhook sends the appropriate information to our API. And the webhook also comes up with a response to send back to the user. So the webhook would send the response to API.ai, again through ngrok, that would send the response to the Google Home that would eventually speak the response to the patient. So far this is the only action that was developed with Google for our Alzheimer's IoT. And before we get into what we've developed with the Alexa, we're going to start with an introduction on mini mental exams, which is a principal component of one of the skills for the Alexa.
A mini mental state exam, or an MMSE for short, is a list of questions that's commonly used to help diagnose patients with Alzheimer's, dementia, or other related illnesses. Most of these MMSEs have a common set of questions and a common grading scale based on severity, as you can see up here. This goes from having 3 different outcomes. Either the patient shows no, mild, or severe cognitive impairments. Though there are these common questions and grading scales, it isn't strict, so you can change the questions or the grading depending on the patient's needs. Our MMSE, it differs a little bit from the standard MMSE. Typically, a patient's answers total up to 30 points, while ours only totals up to 5. However, each of the questions in our implementation are from the official MMSE question set. The reason why we implemented fewer questions than normal is because this is a proof of concept work, and we wanted to get our development power in other parts of the system as well once we got a good enough handle on how to implement this type of exam on a smart home device. While it is important, while this mini mental state exam is an important piece of the diagnosing process, it's important to remember that in and of itself, a mental exam cannot be a diagnosis. Our point for using, or our goal for using this tool is to gather data over a large amount of time. That way we'll be able to tell when a negative trend occurs. At this point, the user and the patient should go visit a doctor together to get further testing done.
So, just like the Google Home, the Amazon Echo's implementation system is very similar, with two big key differences. First off, instead of going through Google, it runs through Amazon. But the other one is Google Home has a nice, powerful system where it can do language processing and pull out keywords. Amazon currently lacks that feature in the Echo, though they are beginning to look into it more. So, how we went about implementing the memory to the MMSE is it's a 5-question answer game. The patient initiates it by saying, Alexa, start memory game, and Alexa will start giving the patient questions, and the patient will give their response. Once the game is complete, the Echo will vocalize their score, telling the patient how well they did, and then send the score also to the API. Now, we've covered a lot about the data gathering, but just gathering the data is only one part of the process. Without a good way to store and prepare it for consumption, it's kind of pointless. Therefore, we have built an API system to do that.
So, like Mike mentioned, to really tie all of these devices together, we implemented a centralized REST API. This API, alongside an instance of MongoDB, facilitates the process of archiving and querying all of the data generated by the IoT devices. For design considerations, one of the first things that we chose was to use MongoDB over a more traditional relational database. This was because Mongo gives us more flexibility in the way that we store the data while still allowing for structure when necessary. And then Node was chosen as the API implementation language because Node and Mongo play well together. And then finally, we also, for the process of actually sending and receiving data, we decided to go with StormPath for easy OAuth integration. That way, this transmission is secure. And finally, one other important thing to note about the API is that it was one of the first portions of the project to be containerized through Docker. As Anna had mentioned earlier, Docker is great because it abstracts a lot of the installation issues that you normally run into when you're developing. However, more importantly, it provides an easy way to link services together and segregate them from the rest of the system. So because our API instance and our Mongo database are containerized with Docker, we're able to separate them from the entire system, link them together, and then limit access to the data inside the database solely through the API. Now, to reiterate what Mike was saying, it's great that we have the system to store the data, and it's great that we have all these data generation tools, but it's about what we can do with the data, which Chris will explain.
So far we've shown how our project gathers and stores data. All of this is important, but it doesn't mean a thing if you can't display that data to patients and their caregivers in a way they can easily understand. There are plenty of ways to update caregivers on the progress of their patients, but not everyone likes to consume information the same way. This is something we've taken into account on the data consumption side of our system. Using our event scheduler, caretakers can choose to get an email or SMS message sent to them based on the updates to the database of their own choosing. In addition, we allow caretakers to coordinate their Google Home with the event scheduler so that it announces updates when certain information enters the database. We even have an option for those who don't want push notifications and instead would rather learn about their patient's activities at whatever time they choose. Using Dashboard, we're able to display an overall picture of the data gathered. Patients and their caretakers can see this data all at once on their computer like they would of any other website. To further this data upon request model, we also allow users to make use of the Amazon Echo for the caregiver app, which queries the API in order to find information on their patient. So to dive deeper into the caregiver app, its main purpose is to allow a caretaker to find out about a patient whenever they want. They simply say to their Amazon Echo, Alexa, start caregiver. From there, they can ask their Echo questions like, did dad take his medicine today? Or what was mom's score on today's memory quiz? And many more. As long as there is data housed in the API, it is reachable by the caregiver app. So, how does this app work? Well, once a user asks their Amazon Echo a question, That information is sent up to Amazon developer where the skill is defined. Using information in the skills definition, Amazon developer connects to our URL broadcast by the hosting service ngrok. Using this ngrok URL, it connects to the Raspberry Pi located in the user's home. This Raspberry Pi contains the actual caregiver app written with a Flask-ASC Python program and the API. This caregiver app can now connect to the API to answer the user's question. From there, the answer to the question is broadcast using the ngrok URL back up to Amazon developer and then communicated to the caretaker's Amazon Echo so it can answer the question, saying something like, Mom got a 4 out of 5 out of the memory quiz today, or Dad did take his medicine today. Overall, the caregiver app's abilities are only limited by the data gathered. The more information obtained through data generation, the more the caregiver app can tell us about a patient, allowing the app's functionality to expand with the growth of technology.
The dashboard is a powerful web-based application which allows for a central location for the caregiver to access the data and analyze the data. This can allow for the recognition of trends and patterns, such as lower memory test scores, perhaps indicating a decline in the patient's mental state. The dashboard currently has the ability of showing the caregiver the most recent location acquired by the GPS app, the last memory game score recorded, the latest journal entry, and information regarding Z-Wave sensors. All of these items include timestamps so the caregiver knows exactly when each data point was added. From the dashboard, the caregiver can access the event scheduler to configure email addresses and phone numbers to send alerts to, as well as add reminders for the patient.
Yet another way to get data out of our system is through the Event Sender. Event Sender is a service that allows a user to get updates via text message, email, or through Google Home whenever an activity is completed by a patient. So for example, a patient can just finish up a memory test or fitting in a journal entry to their Google Home, and as soon as the database updates that information, you'll know about it. Signing up for this service is relatively simple. All you have to do is go to our website and go to either the phone number or email address tab. You'll see a form like this where you type in your contact info to the search bar or the text bar, and a drop-down menu for any of the endpoints you'd like to subscribe to. This is a very good way to get information as soon as it happens. However, there might be times where you don't want to do that. For example, if your mother is having a dinner party and a lot of people are going to be coming in through the doors, so the Z-Wave is very active. Or your mother might be running errands and you'll be getting a GPS update spamming your phone every 5 minutes. However, we do have a solution for this as well.
So to address this, we created the scheduler form, part of the Event Sender UI. What this allows is for you to select whichever medium you want to receive an update on, whether it be SMS, Google, or email. It lets you set the destination, what time you want to receive it at, and a message. And now, what this is, it's for both caregivers and patients to use. So the patient can use this to set a reminder for themselves, such as they can want to be a reminder to take the memory game the next day in the morning. Or Pam can set a reminder for Tom to take his medicine the next morning. But it also has another feature. Right down here you can see there's a drop down that's a yes or no and a service entry selection. What this does is instead of getting a message, you can choose to get the latest update from an endpoint at a certain time. So all you have to simply do is select yes, and then which service you want to be notified of, and set what time you want to receive it at. Now, let's take a better look at the technologies we've used for getting the messages out to people. First off, we have the emailer, which is a Python and Flask-ASC-based API system that is constantly up and running in a Docker container, waiting to receive a destination and a message to be sent. It's currently configured with Gmail as the main way of sending out the mail. However, it's easily to just go in and switch to whatever emailing service you would prefer. You also have an SMS API system.
So again, using Python and Flask's web framework development, we created an application for sending text messages. By utilizing Twilio's cloud communication platform, we're able to send texts from a virtual number to a device. Pairing this with our scheduler and event sender, we can swap out recipient phone numbers and bodies of text so that we can customize text messages for the purpose they're being sent. So if a caregiver wanted to receive an update in a memory score or receive an update in a sensor, they can choose to have that sent. They can choose what data they want to see, how they want to see it, and at what time. All we have to do is send a request to Twilio's API. They handle this server on their backend, and the message is pushed as a notification to the person. We can also opt to do something like have notifications sent to a person's Google Home.
So alerts to the Google Talk actually run through the Home Assistant, which if you remember from before, Home Assistant is what we use for our controller for our Z-Wave devices. So what we did was we created an API that receives messages as strings and pushes them to the Home Assistant, in turn pushing them to the Google Home device. So we created this API so that the event sender and event scheduler could utilize this and send the messages to the Google Home without any mess of having a bunch of different things around the string. So as you can tell, our platform has a lot of different parts inside of it, but what we haven't mentioned yet is the customizability of the platform. So we made our platform customizable for a lot of different situations. All the different components can be added or dropped without effect to other components because they were all created individually. For example, if you didn't want, if you felt that someone should have their memory exam taken every day, but they didn't need GPS tracking, you could drop the GPS tracking from your system without any effect to any other parts of the system. And in addition to this, this could also be added back on if you feel that GPS is necessary for your situation. On top of this, you could also see change how your notifications are sent to you. So like I said before, if you didn't want to have notifications broadcasted throughout your house, you wouldn't need to have that. You could drop the Google Home alerts off of the system, and again, you could add them back on without any difficulty. So like as you can kind of see, there's a lot of different components into in our platform. Let's show how they kind of work with a live demo.
So Anna and I will be taking you through.
This is the moment you've all been waiting for.
Because it's either going to be a great story or really impressive.
Really? If you guys have any questions during it, feel free to ask. So Anna's going to be directing us to the dashboard. So as we've stated, this is where most of everything will be centralized in a nice neat format. But before we go into talking about how things are updated, how it looks when it's updated, we wanted to show how easy it is to add a caregiver to the system. So by clicking the event scheduler, she can pull up the ability to add a phone number. So we would like to use a guinea pig for this. Kai, would you be willing?
Sure.
So from here you can choose which kind of entry you would like. We're going to choose all for our demonstration, if that's okay.
Get ready.
My wife's gonna.
All right, and we're going to...
Wait, he's gonna hit my phone?
No, not ready.
Because otherwise it's gonna upset my
yet.
wife. if I get a different phone.
Using...
Oh, wait, hold on.
Do 908. Do not. Sorry, I'll give you a different phone number. Because
Did we
my
click submit already?
wife won't
Yeah.
find it as funny as we all.
We promised to...
You didn't hit submit on the first one, did you?
Oh, yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Okay, we did.
Okay, yeah, then we're gonna show you how to remove phone numbers.
Yeah, we'll remove it. All right,
awesome.
so that's the correct number, right? All right, so we're going to submit it. Okay, successfully added the phone number.
So simply by using something like the door sensor, if I open and close, using a phone that already is on the system, we can see eventually this will pop up saying that the door was opened and closed. As you can see. Hopefully, you get a message.
So, hold on, I gotta open up my messages. Sorry. Yes, it did. There has been an update to your Z-Wave door. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Hold on.
If you want, anytime during this demo, you can look back and actually see the data moving through the system.
So every single time there's an entry, it will pop up.
It's also over here.
That's
It's a little
great too, if you're
close.
closer to that. Yeah.
It's just a little bigger.
So as easy as that is, that would be if Pam were to have a brother like Dan and he wanted to come in and add himself to the system, where let's say Pam isn't already looking at the GPS and the door information, he can sign up for that.
We should remove that other number because it is going to his wife.
So
No, it's fine. She's gone. She's not in there. And we'll go to the house phone, so it's fine. Don't worry about it.
Is it right for now?
so if we come back to the dashboard, and is it
These these things should be.
So right here, this box is the description of when the door was last opened.
What are your thoughts on how do you ensure that it was Sky and that was related to the patient? I mean, what if it is somebody else?
That is a good question.
Well, summer camp.
Did you just say summer camp?
Yeah.
You need some type of authentication to be able to access this form. You don't want it to be
Yes.
public.
I believe the plan in the future is to be able to make this more of a secure system, so that way when you're gaining access and you can verify that that is one of your numbers, you aren't adding in someone in Kentucky and letting them get all of your information.
Right
So they would
now-
send you a link that's connected to their house.
Right now, you don't have to log in, but we're hoping that we can make a login so that you have an account associated with this.
And with that, you can also combine that information with the GPS coordinate. So let's say this was not, so let's say Tom was somewhere on the other side of the city, but his door is open. You can know that he probably left the door open, maybe forgot, or there may be an issue. This also is the most recent update using the GPS app. To show that it would be working, we would have to send someone around the campus, and he's currently one of the people with us, so we can do that.
All right.
Tyler volunteered to go.
So next up, we're going to show you how our MMSE works. Does anybody want to volunteer to take that?
You're the closest one to it.
There are no expectations. You don't have to get a 100%.
Sure.
Do you want to explain it to him?
Sure. So basically, all you need to say is Alexa, start memory game, and she'll get you through the rest of it.
Good luck. Alexa, start memory game.
Welcome to Memory Game. I'm going to ask you several questions. Are you ready?
Yes.
What is the year?
2017.
Good job. Are you ready for another question?
Yeah.
What is the month?
It is now April.
That is the wrong answer. Are you ready to try again?
April.
That is the wrong answer. Are you ready to try again?
Just say yes at this point.
Repeat the phrase. No ifs, ands, or buts.
No ifs, ands, or buts.
Good job. Are you ready for another question?
Yes.
Earlier I asked you to remember a noun. Can you please say that noun for me?
Airplane.
Good job. Are you ready for another question?
Yes.
The game is over. You answered 5 questions correct.
All right. So, awesome job on your memory game. The answer that I was looking for was simply April.
Yeah.
So you added a couple of extra words in there, and right now it's at the state where it's very simple
Okay,
statements.
like Amazon isn't.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
April also has some pronunciation errors sometimes with it where it might say.
Sometimes
April.
the text will parse April as an April.
So if we reload this page, we should see that the last memory test was taken a couple seconds ago and your score was 3. So this just gives us a sort of another way
mild
of...
cognitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you might want to talk to your doctor about it.
65 questions, you're good to go.
So next up we have the journal, which is sort of like the MMSE, and since it takes a little bit more knowledge about keywords that it needs, we're going to have one of our team members, Charlie, explain this.
Can I ask a quick question just about the memory game? Is that something that someone has to ask to do, or could you schedule it to happen the first Friday before?
Currently, this is only implemented on the Alexa, which doesn't have push notifications. That thing will turn on every time you say Alexa. So currently, it can't start up on its own, but Alexa is, or Amazon is planning to put out push notifications, to my knowledge, over the past couple months, or next, whatever's. So it might become possible in the future, but currently it's not.
It could set up, we did talk last time about it, you could set up your, rather than your alarm having a buzzer, it could just start saying, take mini mental exam, take mini mental exam, take mini mental exam.
Right.
And that would remind you to then, but then you'd have to ask it.
You would
Set up.
Right, yes, yeah.
But Google Home could possibly do it.
Right, you can set up a type of reminder like that through the event center.
All right, thanks.
We'll show later.
Quick thought, I like that you only did 5 questions. I understand it's a prototype. in the future, I think you might want to consider keeping the 5 questions and have them be drawn at random, so you don't have like a practice effect.
I think that was one of the goals.
Yeah, that is one of the ideas, and sort of, if we had more time, we would have definitely loved to go in that direction.
I think it's awesome.
So in order to activate an action on Google Home, you're basically, to initiate a conversation, you just say, it's muted right now, so it's not going to start while I'm explaining it. I'll say, okay, Google, talk to insert name of action here. So in this case, it'll be journal. And it's important to note also that when you're done, you have to manually cancel. So just demonstrate it for you. No, just by saying cancel, actually. I'll show you.
The mic's back on.
Okay, Google, talk to journal.
Sure, here is the test version of Journal.
Hello. What did you do today?
Today I went for a walk and I also went grocery shopping.
Did you take your medicine today?
Yes, I did.
Thanks for sharing. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Sounds good. Cancel.
Sorry, can you say that
I
again?
said sounds good. Cancel. Just like that. I'm gonna mute it again. Okay, now you can talk about it.
Awesome, thank you very much.
Thank you, Charlie.
So if we reload here, our latest journal appears here. So Charlie did take his medication, and here is his exact dialogue. Today I went for a walk and also went grocery shopping, and his activity synopsis is walking, shopping, and he took his medication.
So outside of the dashboard, we also have one other way of going about showing the information, which Chris went over in the presentation, and we would like for him to show you how it works with the Alexa.
Sure. So on top of the dashboard, we also have Caregiver, which gives us another dimension of asking about a patient. So you just interact with the Alexa to do that. So I'm going to mute this. Alexa, start Caregiver.
Welcome to Caregiver.
What was Dad's last journal entry?
Dad's most recent journal entry stated that they took their medicine today. Their message was, today I went for a walk and I also went grocery shopping, and their listed activities were walking and shopping and medicine.
And we can also find out how you just did on the memory quiz right now. So I can say, oh, I'm probably messing with the Alexa by talking right now. But how did Dad do a memory game?
Dad played memory game on April 28, 2017, 6:13 p.m. and received a score of 3.
So yeah, all you need to do is just interact with Alexa, and she will spit back that information right at you.
So if you notice the time that she spit out, it was...
Any other questions?
Stop Caregiver.
It's muted.
Uh-oh. Stop Caregiver.
Shutting down Caregiver. Goodbye.
Thanks.
See ya.
So as you notice, you may have noticed that the time that it spit out was a little differently. Josh pointed out that that's because the default time zone that it's on is like over in France, so it's a couple of hours ahead. But that is, if we change the time zone, it would be an accurate timestamp on that.
So that's just another way for us to be able to customize our system and another way of seeing the data. But the next thing we'd like to show you is another part of our GUI, which is the event scheduler itself. So this is something you might have thought of when we were talking about being able to set a notification for you to say, go take your test.
We're doing an email then?
Yeah, so we're going to do an example of how this would work. You would put in destination email. You could choose SMS, you could choose a Google Home so you can get a push notification. You would simply put in your destination email, what time you would like this to be set at. So hopefully we get this in time.
And we're going to do, okay, so what time if we do it in military time? Somebody tell me what that is.
1421.
14.
No, but you can't do 1421, or is this mean that's still kind of really...
We'll be fast, it'll work.
Okay, and we're going to do a message, or we're going to do the...
We would be doing the GPS data. So we would click down on this drop down, we would pick yes, so we would get the latest entry of one of the services, and we can choose either GPS, journal, or memory game. We'll choose GPS for this, and we'll click submit.
Okay, so we get the alert saying that the schedule's been made, click OK, and we wait.
So in the meantime, while we're waiting for that email to be sent out, we would like to show that it also can work for the Google Home if we wanted to send a push notification. So if you wanted to remind someone, take your memory game test. So instead of the medium being email, you would choose Google Home. There would be no destination, so you can leave that either filled or blank. Doesn't really matter here. We would, again, update the time, and we will send in a message. We could put something like take your memory test, But for our sake, we'll just say it's time to wrap up the demo. And we wouldn't have any latest entry of service, otherwise that would override our message and it would actually send the most recent update. And so if we click submit. Okay. And I think now we can check.
221, so we should have the message in here.
Hey, 221. We have an
There's the
update
latest
on GPS update.
All right, so we gotta wait 30 seconds until the Google Home goes up.
So as you see, it's a nice, easy format. There are times where it can be a little bit goofy with white spacing and stuff like that, but right now it's a very easy format to come to from just a link on the dashboard for you to be able to set it up.
10 seconds.
Also, just to mention, the dashboard and the scheduler are both Bootstrap enabled, so they can be done on tablets, smartphones, or your standard computer.
Finish demo.
And thanks to the Google Home, that is the end of our demo.
So that is our demo.
Oh wait, there's one.
So,
oh wow.
Currently, our architecture serves a small number of people, or can serve a small number of people, each with their own independent system. In time, though, we hope that we can deploy our design for many patients and organize the data into a central aggregation system. In future applications of our platform, we can securely and easily send data to this platform and host anywhere from hundreds to thousands of patients. By doing this, we can give physicians access to an interface that tracks patient conditions and medical adherence, as well as give them an idea in overall memory and mental capabilities, all without the patient actually being present inside of a healthcare facility. This is ultimately going to create a more dynamic and open environment for patients, for their caregiver or caregivers, and is going to allow physicians to get better insight into a patient's well-being and their quality of life. Physicians are going to be able to make better choices for the patients earlier on because they're going to have meaningful data on that person, whether it's their first time checking up or just another routine. So right now, we're just going to take some time to talk about the lessons we learned this semester, things that we can share with some of the future teams, and things that we can take with ourselves wherever we go.
So one of the first things we learned during this semester is that all smart homes are not the same. While they may have very similar capabilities to each other, there are differences that separate them. One of the first ones we noticed was that when working with a Google Home, it's easy to get the text of a reply from the user. Much easier than it is on an Amazon Echo or Dot. To be able to do that with an Echo or a Dot, you need to use another outside application like a Flask Ask app or something along those lines. So when moving forward, if you're looking to base some form of an action around the text, it's probably a better option to use Google. Another difference we noticed is that the Home Assistant does not pick up Amazon Echoes or Dots. So the ability to do push notifications currently, as we noted before, is currently impossible for us to do. In working with these devices, we also had to look at how security and other legal issues work.
So one of the biggest things we've done so far is make sure the data is secure on our end that we've developed and taken steps to prevent it from leaking anywhere. However, there is a gap, and that's when from the Google and the Echo, the data is sent to Amazon or Google to do speech-to-text processing, which means that patient's information has gone outside of our control and now sits on servers that we have no say over. So moving forward, that's a legal issue people have to be aware of, that their data is now on a publicly owned Amazon service. But we also learned that data within these structures can have issues, which Megan's going to cover.
So for both the Amazon Alexa and the Google Assistant, the actions and the skills have sub-functionalities called intents. And these intents are basically for the personal assistants to know what to say next based on certain words. So they are triggered by certain keywords. And most of the time, these keywords are obscure enough that these intents won't be triggered when you don't want them to be triggered. But sometimes the user does say these keywords outside of context, which causes a perceived lack of control if a skill or if an action or skill is triggered when it's not supposed to be. So with this issue, it's similar for both the Google Home and the Alexa, but we've also had issues, as Alec mentioned, between the two devices that are different. So Josh is going to talk to you a little bit about that.
So, as Alec mentioned and others have touched upon, another problem that that's desired but we can't currently do is like sending push notifications directly to smart home devices. So during our exploratory phase, like at this moment in time, we found out trying to get these two devices to natively speak on their own was nearly impossible. In the case of the Google Home, we had to use an entirely separate service, Home Assistant, as Bill mentioned, just to get it to send a voice string. And then the Echo was even worse, as we couldn't get it to speak on its own at all, even with Home Assistant. As a result, in our project, we had to focus on presenting notifications to users through more traditional means, like SMS or email. And this is especially true if someone were to get this product right now and decide not to use Z-Wave. They wouldn't be able to do any of the Google Home notifications. Therefore, at this moment in time, we'd like to advise any future development on either smart home device to keep this experience in mind and just warn developers that all interaction with the user will have to happen after the user has already spoken to the device. So, in addition to this and other information that we feel Merck should know going forward with the project, there are also a few lessons that we have learned as a group along the way.
Over the course of developing our IoT implementation, we learned that we must be careful with crossing the threshold between a helpful device and a medical device. We cannot advise a patient on taking their medication. We can only suggest seeking medical advice from a trained professional. Medical devices go through much longer testing and evaluation before they can reach their target audience, and as such, avoiding being classified as a medical device is desirable. For example, if a patient using the journal says they did not take their medication, we can log this information to the server for further evaluation, but we cannot advise them to take their medication. Another lesson learned is that not everyone in the group has the same levels of experience.
So our capstone group is one of the largest capstone groups that the Moravian College Computer Science Department has seen. With that comes the fact that we have a lot of different levels of experience in our group. This comes from us working in different places. So an example of this would be like a lot of us have worked together on the SOAR program where Merck and Moravian work together with the computer science department to do different projects. And on these experiences, we're able to work together towards a common goal and get our own experience in that direction. But others were able to find their own internships and tailor towards what they were trying to learn. And with this gave us a lot of different fields of experience that we had to bring together for this group. So we're actually able to use that in a way to tackle different obstacles for this project. So we had people with networking experience who were able to work on API side of the project, while people with mobile experience were able to work on apps and mobile apps for us to use during this. And people with graphic design experience were part of our graphics team. With all this different varying experience, we were able to kind of tackle different angles on different projects to make sure that this could all be done in the most efficient way possible. But with this, we really found out that this a project isn't a real project until a lot of plans get changed, altered, or a lot of times just dropped off.
So in some development projects, we have a set of tasks in order to complete and deliver the final product. In experimental products such as ours, there's not a concrete outcome, and a lot of the times the end result can greatly differ from the initial idea that we had for the project, as we've probably displayed here. For those of you who attended our first meeting, it might be a little different from what we had intended, but that's totally okay. Not everything that we as developers are going to stick, and with everything changing as it does in our field, our solutions are fairly temporary. They're going to be altered based on environments and software and hardware changes. And even some colleagues, they might find a better solution, so they're going to go with that one rather than yours. Sometimes your solution or your sub-project or sub-task won't be on the initial deployment or the initial launch, and that's okay too. So our example of this is our data security. Right now, we really wanted our OAuth to work on our primary instance. But as April started rolling around and some of our components weren't clicking with our OAuth service, we just needed to figure out where we could allocate our resources elsewhere so that we could maximize the outcome of this project. So currently, we have a secondary instance that does run OAuth, but the one that we used here today with the demo does not. The OAuth is certainly not gone, not forgotten. The summer team, many of whom you'll see, will probably work on it as we understand that data security is very important, especially in the healthcare field. So, given that, let's take a look at what Charlie has to say.
I got one last lesson for you guys. So something else we learned, one last thing we learned over the course of the semester in our many meetings with you guys was the driving, the power of storytelling. Storytelling is a driving force that allows us to demonstrate these technologies to you in a scenario one can easily imagine. Coming into the project, we do not foresee how useful this mechanism will prove, and this is certainly a tool that will serve us well as we enter the professional world and seek to establish ourselves and communicate effectively. But at this point, I bet you're wondering, we talked about all this stuff, but like, what's next? Because we're moving on. So let someone else address that.
Yeah. So with our semester coming to an end, we've put together some things that we'd like to see implemented with this system in the future. One of those things that we want to see implemented is an installer, a tool that will make getting the components of our system easy and customizable. So if someone wanted to install this but only install some parts of it, they can choose to do that. Something else we want is a better user experience. So something like combining all of our web interfaces into one platform. So then the dashboard, event sender, and the scheduler can all be accessed in the same place. We also still need to Dockerize some of our components. Right now the dashboard is not running in a Docker container, but that's something that we hope will be implemented in the future. And as Anna mentioned, OAuth is still a pretty big component of this. Without authentication and security, something like this can't possibly be pushed out to the public. People don't want their private information being accessed by anyone, and I think this is one of the critical things we need to have down before this can move forward. But unfortunately, like people have said before, we don't have the time to work on this anymore, so we're actually going to be passing this on to a summer team. Some of them are actually in the back row right now, and we hope that they enjoy this as much as we have. And yeah, that concludes our presentation, so I'm just going to give us a clap before we move on to questions.
So well done. I'm so excited. This was, sorry, can I say something? Is that all right?
Go for it.
We're really, really excited besides this. I'll make this quick because I know you're all thinking this yourself and myself. I have to say between, working with Ditson and Pete, and when they first came, I wasn't sure what to expect, and from the first class, I realized the diversity of experiences, so I was really excited. And you guys have exceeded in all ways. Even all having collared shirts was awesome today. But no, you guys, but you guys took it seriously and you guys really gave us some insights, because I joke about it, but between Python and having a Raspberry and a whale with a Rubik's Cube, all those things are things I didn't know before. So one of the things I said day one is I wanted to learn more about what it took. So I hope you guys would, really enjoyed it. I would love to know. You said a little bit about what advice you'd give to the people in the back, but what is one thing that you said, I was good to do this, and boy did I waste a bunch of time doing that, where I'd give you advice. I'm curious about you guys, because I'll be talking to others about it, even not just in this class. Do we have time to just ask that question?
Go for it, yeah, we have.
All right, so if you guys just wouldn't mind thinking about that and just kind of going through and tell me, one thing that you thought you did really well for yourself, and one thing you wish, someone had told you before you started, as you started working on this.
I think I'll start, because I've never worked in a team this big before. It takes considerably more effort than working with another person or even 3 people. And when you have 11 people, you sort of have to be conscious of everyone's efforts and put your own time into knowing they know what you're doing. I think that's a pretty nice lesson I learned throughout all this. It doesn't really have to do with the project, but more for myself.
Since he spoke up, you're next. Well done. My school is over. No, what is one thing that you tip that you had, or something you think you did really well that you were kind of like, this worked, or something that you said you wish you had known before you started this work? Because you were saying not all the ideas. It doesn't look like it did day one. When we were writing up there, it's a little bit different. And even when you were showing the locator and we were talking about that, or the little things you learned, you're like, oh, hold on a second. There's some things that you wish that could have saved you time. So that's what I'm asking.
Well, one of the things that I actually struggled with was it's different than working on some of our summer teams where we're in here 8 hours a day with each other. It's easy to communicate like that. Being able to try to jump in on projects is much more difficult doing that. When some people will get the idea to do something, sometimes they'll just start working on it without the other part of the group knowing. So that initial start was a little difficult for me to get used to. But throughout the course of it, I think we all learned how to find a way to make sure everyone knew where we were at with things, and if someone needed help, making sure that that was a concept.
So it wasn't a coincidence that I had this slide about things getting dropped. I had personally a little bit of a tough semester, and I had to learn how to swallow that not everything that I did was going to be used. I jumped on the OAuth project, and that ended up getting dropped. I had a couple of little bits that I was trying to help people the best way that I could, but my computer environment wasn't working, my path was broken, and things just weren't working out, so I was desperate to try to help people, and it was frustrating that nothing was sticking, as I was explaining. But I did find my calling. I did do most of the graphics, so I did have a lot of fun with that.
The whale.
The whale. So I need to explain. I love this whale. It's sort of like my child. I like how the waves go in the line. So now it's become sort of an inside joke because I love the whale so much. I don't even know if in general it's really that great. I just really like it. So.
You couldn't put enough places. Well done.
I think I can add in a little bit on this. It's kind of the other side though, because I remember I was one of the first people to work with the Google Home. I remember I was getting a little nudged by Dr. Coleman saying that if this doesn't work by Friday, we're not doing the Google Home. And I was like, no, I know it can work, and I'm persistent on getting it to work, and I got it to work. So I think like being persistent and not always taking like, we don't think this is gonna work, so let's just not do it. I learned a lesson that like, no, you can like try and like work hard at getting something done, and sometimes it does work out. So that's just what I experienced this semester, which is pretty cool.
I would add a little bit to what Dan and Alex said about like the whole team environment, like making sure there's no like repeat work done and everything like that. And a little bit of what you said too, because it was my first time working at Internet of Things technologies as well. And the first time I had to program a skill to the Alexa, I did it entirely the wrong way by following directions, even though it's supposed to follow kind of a different set of directions. So just kind of just be taking like a look at like where you are and just making sure you're doing the right thing at all times. And asking other people for help, I think, is very helpful when you're working on a team.
I think very similarly to Megan, I had done Android programming in the past, and going on to making a GPS app, I figured, you know, it could take a week, it could be done in a week. But I hadn't considered that Google changes the operating system very often. So 1 week turned into 2 weeks, and then 3 weeks, and next thing I know, Coleman told me, if it's not done by this Friday, it's going to get cut. It's not going to be a part of it. You have to move on. And, you know, it's a tough thing to swallow when your project might get cut like that. So it's, I wish I had known, you know, just how much time things, even though they seem trivial, can take.
What a strict boss.
One of these things isn't going to be here on Friday.
I'd just like to throw in that if you find something unexpected, don't just let it go. Like, if you remember earlier, I think you were there for this actually, when we found out that we could send notifications to the Google Home, we were actually messing around with the Z-Wave devices, and Josh just goes down there and says, hey, the Google Home is on here, I'm going to type something into it and see if it says something, and it did. And then from then on, we were able to make Python scripts calling libraries and calling different services from the Home Assistant to access the Google Home. and that's kind of how we got the push notifications. And that's all from us finding something accidentally and just kind of like goofing around with something. So if you find something unexpected, see if you can roll with it.
I feel like the question is evolving as we answer it. So I'm just personally reflecting.
Shun's going to turn
on the
into
project.
what I could have done better and skip that.
So I personally had like a rough start to the project because I was out the second week I had to go home to visit a loved one, and I found myself like scrambling to catch up, and I tried, and consequently I found myself with my hands on as much as I could possibly get. So I didn't get as deep of an understanding as say like Bill, who specialized with the Z-Wave, can tell you all about it. I mean, I can tell you that I looked at the code and like I might have helped him write a couple lines, but having done that, I felt like I wasn't contributing as much as I could have. But what I realized is like where I was excelling was more in communicating technology and working to express it to other people and communicate. So I started to take the reins more on like presentation stuff and learned more about myself and like my skill set and was able to, fit in, I guess.
No.
Yeah, so I'm going to say the thing that I think I did good about, because I think I did kind of good about it. So a part of this class, besides working on the demo, was watching a series called Clean Code on Safari Books. And it's basically, just how to make your code cleaner, how to make it readable to somebody who's going to pick up your project once you leave. And so we spent a lot of time in that, watching those in class, probably 6 to 10 hours watching these videos and stuff. And I think I did a fairly decent job bringing those lessons into making my code a little bit more readable and understandable. So that they don't have to read like a document in order to get it, or talk to one of us in order to understand, or something like that.
To add on to his point, I think a lot of us actually did a good job of writing code. I could come into any part of the project and have a decent understanding of what is happening in the code. It doesn't take me 2 hours to catch up to what might have changed. I think it's probably the best kept system that we've seen from a senior capstone class yet.
So that means that the summer team has no excuse.
Oh yeah, no.
We even started documentation.
And anything?
Going off of the idea of persistence, like I mentioned earlier, the API is something that I worked on, and it was the first thing you could Dockerize. And Docker can be a huge pain to set up initially, but then it's once every single one of those components is set up with Docker, it's literally writing a command to link them together. And then to bring up the entire system, I literally run one command. That's it. It's there's some things that are just so worth spending the effort to bug and get working. And I think that's more fun.
I had another question. That's on my thing. You guys have any questions?
I have a question. So you guys worked as one team?
Yes.
Okay, did you follow any kind of development strategy, and maybe how did that work out?
Scrum.
You did regular Scrum?
Yeah, every Monday we complain.
Complaining Scrum.
Oh yeah.
Airing of
Every Monday.
Well, sometimes it was weekly, sometimes it was bi-weekly. It depended on where we were at.
It always started with, do we have to though?
Do we have to stand?
Was that sufficient?
It gave us a good idea of what the other people were doing, but our lines of communication could have definitely been a little bit better. Most of us didn't start using the group chat that we had on our messaging app. We didn't start using that until the later end of the semester, and so there were times where I know I was working on something and somebody else was working on the exact same thing, and it was oh well, we just wasted half of our time.
At certain points of the semester, we had to give peer evaluations. I remember a couple of us asking each other what someone else was working on at the time, so that way we knew what was actually going on when we were giving the evaluations. So the scrums were helpful, but a bi-weekly one I feel isn't enough. I feel it has to be more we had to get together as a group outside of class possibly to try to really communicate those.
Which is hard to balance when we have 3 other classes
Yeah.
at the same time.
The scrum was definitely important, but it needed to be supplemented with further communication. And in the beginning, we didn't take that extra step to have that further communication. We thought we could rely on the scrums, and that proved to be untrue. Later found out.
I'd also add that like we use Trello to basically manage tasks and everything too. So, and we got better at that, I think, as the semester went on too. So that helped a lot in terms of figuring out those issues. Yeah.
So maybe you could share, this wasn't your day job. You weren't working on this 40 hours a week, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Classes.
Whenever I found time.
There was 1 week where I got that.
3 or 4 more classes.
Yeah.
This week was primary and capstone week.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Everything else was sort of put to the side.
So what was the question?
I wanted to give people a sense in the room of, like, you actually have other classes and life in the senior lane and everything else. This wasn't the output of a dedicated, heads down,
My Mondays start from
40 hour
9
week
and go
thing.
until 10 at night. So I have quite a long Mondays, but
I'm 10 to 8 on Monday and Wednesday.
Yeah. So it was really trying to find the time that we could try to work. Like Meg and Charlie and I would work on the journal.
It's just really going the extra mile to communicate with the person and be like, we're working on the same thing. When are you free this week? We have to get something done for Coleman or it's going to drop.
We know.
No, we're not trying to make out Coleman as a bad guy. I just want to
But yeah, we need the push to get
Yeah, we
stuff
need
done.
It was pressure on us.
Absolutely.
Obviously,
worked
the
out
push is
scary.
Yeah.
How many of you would, once you guys will all get your jobs, how many of you will buy a Google and how many of you will buy an Echo? If you don't have one.
Google.
Definitely
So
not.
take your time.
I don't want to.
I don't actually want one, but
I have no desire to purchase a smartphone.
Right. But if you had your choice,
Google.
you
I
have
would
to
go
go
Google specifically for the reason because like I can send notifications to it and I could like scare people who come to my house.
Exactly. Like I
Don't
used to
worry,
do
open
mine.
to distract.
I would just get tracked. Some random text every hour or so. Dinner party.
I think I'm the only one that would get an Alexa, I guess. Because like,
I'm an Echo guy too.
Doors right there. I'll see you later. Great life.
well, like the Alexa's cheaper, and I already know how to program for it, and so like there's a learning curve for Google. But also, Alexa, from the articles I've read, Amazon is planning to put push notifications on Alexa. So when that comes, it pretty much has most of the same functionality, and so it would just be better for me, I guess.
I think at this current state, like if you were just to get it as a product, I think the Alexa is a little bit further advanced in what it allows and offers. But Google
In our
has shown,
unique position.
yeah, but Google has shown with most of their products that at some point they catch up and surpass everyone, and it's just.
Yeah, but you saw at the big health conference, 40,000 people at HIMSS this year. Amazon was taking it seriously. Google was there, but the Echo was the product, like above everybody. Even though Google has the cachet, I think at times, 40,000. I mean, they were at the Echo was everywhere, and so I think it was really interesting seeing how much that they are putting that push.
I just hope it's not a VHS versus Betamax.
No, yeah, that's true.
So I agree. I mean, just day to day using the Google, you can ask it just a generic question and it can actually answer you. Half the time I ask my Echo a question, she's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like the interface and like the usability of the Google, and I haven't actually developed on either one, so just from like an outside, I would much rather interact with the Google Home. It just seems more natural.
You can play jazz.
Well,
Yeah, exactly.
Well, one of the things that we did find, because we did some market research internally at Merck with caregivers, and they were using the Echo for a couple months, and they were, one person came up and said, well, let's source Bing. Are you kidding me? Who uses Bing? But it doesn't source its information. So if you ask the Echo how many oceans are in the world, it'll say 5. And if you ask the Google, it will source it and say, well, actually, eventually it's 4, but now most people accept 5 because of Southern Antarctica, and according to the NCOA. So its credibility was found to be greater as well. My last thing was just 2 things, and I don't know if anyone is, there's a lot of, okay,
Did you have a question?
I was just curious from a timeline perspective, like, how long did it take you from when you got started to when you had something that kind of worked, and like for each of the components, how long did it take you before you had something you could actually use, and then how long did it take from getting that initial usability to this final product?
What was the date we started?
I mean, we had something
for
for when
the
Kai came for the second time. We had
But if you had an idea, I guess, if you had a good idea, how long would it take you now as your JOB or your internship? Would it take you to develop? And I don't mean something this complex, but I'm saying,
Like, if we were to just do this again, like all 11 of us, like not in a different setting, like,
yeah.
what do we have all day?
Yep.
So it's like our
8 hours a day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We were able to pull something together within
Less than a month, probably.
I would say 2 weeks.
I'd take 2 weeks. Especially having that like direct concentration on this and nothing else,
Yep.
like no other class. And if
Remember
just
to
like,
learned over
this
here.
is my project.
This is your internship, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week.
I would say a month.
I was gonna say,
That unbroken
yeah, just to be careful.
Yeah.
You think what?
There's a lot of
I'm gonna say a month just to be careful, so like, if we hit the 2-week deadline and like, we're not there, I don't know.
Built for a month.
I think Jeff's questions as much goes to, think about what it felt like at midterm.
Yeah.
Looking at Anna. Right? Your frustration at that point, right? And it wasn't just you just were, vocalizing that feeling.
Yeah.
Like, what was the feeling at that time?
You can be honest.
I think there was a little. Well, at the beginning of the project, dude, there was a big feeling of uncertainty. Like, we weren't really sure where it was going. We kind of figured it out along the way.
Yeah, instead of one direction, there was like 40 different directions. We had the Google apps going this way, Amazon apps going this way. We threw in Z-Wave somewhere over there, and
Like the pill bottle.
yeah, the pill bottle.
Pill bottle
somewhere
could be
in there.
integrated, but we never got around to it.
Yeah, so basically, one of my issues was that we had all these little things that were sort of floating around in the ether, but they weren't really connected, and I wasn't seeing the project as a whole. I wasn't seeing it really come together. Also, we had all these data generation points, and we didn't do anything with it. It was just going to a database, and like we're like, okay, so this is real cool, but like, what now? So that's where we did our dashboard and all of our stuff so that we could push out that data.
Because there were so many other directions that we could go in, there were certain things that just got dropped, like I was bringing up the stuff she worked on. I think I spent a week trying to look at your Holy Grail idea, and eventually I was just like, no. And then, so it's just the
I
idea.
think I cut that one off. I said stop.
Yeah, because there's too much medical research, but it was just once we got to what we knew, what we had to actually get done, it was much faster. We just were able to work together at a much better pace.
Yeah, that's actually something I wanted to dig into a little more. Like, I was there for the first meeting. I would have never expected this. This is amazing. So can you lead us through like what that looked like to be a team that isn't in the same room, high latency between all your communications? How did you manage getting here, and what did that look like?
That's actually how I think it was after spring break that we started on the data consumption side.
Yeah. But like, how did you decide what would make it? Was any one person doing a project management role that you, not officially, but was Dr. Coleman kind of like killing things, nudging and helping?
I gave ultimatums, I gave
He's our
CSCI.
Kai's the product owner.
So what happened was Dr. Coleman and I talked, and I said, it's time to make things disappear by Friday.
It was you. You were behind it
No, but a lot of it came in when, the first meeting, there were essentially 3 big meetings. You were here for the first one.
Yeah.
Right, and then there were 2 status updates.
There was 2 sets, and I had one there, because there was the one where, so I was 4 meetings, 4 afternoons, because I also had to call into one from Australia.
Right.
So we had that, but I think,
that's where the direction came.
Yeah, but I mean,
so-
that's like very, that's your like high level touch points that kind of like guide and mature it, but like, how did the team decide on like ngrok one day? Like, did someone just start using it and someone said,
hey, that's cool, that saves us some time, and like, how did you tell the rest of the team? Like, how did you keep
Colton
yourself?
sent us an email.
Yeah,
And we just replied.
So there was someone else kind of
Yeah.
like providing governance?
Well, we discussed how we're doing
And we do.
in class, we
I mean, I learned stuff.
It was like,
So
this
you
is
did
our
have
goal. We
come
don't know
together.
exactly how we're gonna accomplish this specific goal. And we would talk about it amongst ourselves and pass emails back and forth in our group.
So it sounds like you came together at least weekly. And
Well, we met Monday and Wednesday.
3 times a week for class.
And then we'd have a presentation every Friday.
Okay.
And then
Not to
in
mention-
between, we would just, any different subset of us would get together and work on certain
So going to
components.
Jeff's question, if you could do it again, would you have stayed separate and having those like 3 times a week touch points? Or do you think it would have looked differently if you were all dedicated in the same physical space while you were developing it?
So 1 month to do all full-time or 3 months spread out?
Do you think there were benefits
I'd rather
to
do
the
full-time.
two?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd rather do full-time.
No, this
But like,
is-
I still believe in like the dividing the group, instead of like everyone, like all 11 of us working on one
Yeah.
thing, it's like if I'm working on like Z-Wave with Josh or something like that, that's like our group. Whereas like other people working on the event center could work on the event center, and people working on Google Home things could.
Did any of you pick anything that you weren't an expert on? Because I know you were a Z-Wave, guy.
I didn't know what it was before though.
So you wasn't your back, so you had a different background. You went to something completely new.
Josh kind of sent me a link that he found to like learn a bit on it, and then from there we kind of just saw what we
So you guys found your place to learn something, but also.
I want to say we all worked with something we've never worked with.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't pick anything for a specific reason. It was like, I'm gonna try this, who wants to help?
Yeah, I've never seen Google Home in person until this semester, so.
I didn't know what the Amazon Echo was during our first meeting.
There is such thing as a dumb question.
But I think, yeah, I tried to jump on to whatever I could to learn.
Yeah, in Scrum meetings, it would be like, I finished this, but I'm working on stuff for other classes. I know you don't want to hear about that, but does anybody need help with something? Because I want to get my hands on
And
it.
even outside of the technology, there were a couple of times of where if we didn't have anything to work on, one of the skills we were working on was actually stories and trying to work on that idea of building a story, because that's still another skill set that we need to work on outside of learning a new technology. It's valuable.
Was there any information that Merck could have given you, like either P or Jason or myself could have given you to set you guys up more for success?
Well, like I said at the beginning, it was like almost an overwhelming sense of uncertainty. The only thing I would have really asked for is like a specific goal. But with a project like this, it's hard to do that. So it's understandable, but like at the same time, it
Give us
doesn't
a
make it any
diagram
less
that looks like this and we'll make it.
So in other words, give you a checklist of stuff to do.
Exactly.
When I think that's really a whale with a Rubik's Cube, I'm the guy, okay?
Yes. How do you want that?
Do you really want Kai designing that?
It wouldn't look quite like that.
Yeah, we start with 3 questions, we get this. So
I think it's great, because I will say from the work, I'm connected to some of the Amazon work, and I hope I get to be involved in a future class, because you guys, I learned so much from you, and I actually enjoyed it. To the point that I got refused sometimes when I said, can I come join? But thank you guys very much.
So I would just say it's been amazing from the beginning to watch you guys grow from that. It's really unusual to have an empty board here. It's like you were raised,
we did.
and now we have that. It's like this cacophony of stuff here, and bam. I think I speak for everyone that's worked with you that it's been amazing to watch you figure this out. And, the skills that you all are or could be in one way or another rock stars in what you do, but the fact that you realize that you're more of an orchestra, a really, really, really good orchestra, and you know how to play, you know when to tune down, you don't want to be the blaring horn in the back when it's not appropriate, and then someone needs to run around and make sure it's balanced. And occasionally you have this weird eccentric conductor who comes in, or the guy who comes in that, tells you, no, I don't want to see that, But at the same level, take it up another level, those skills that you've learned. You didn't build one of the pieces of technology here. Someone who does it well also built the Google back end. The guys who did the open source components represent probably a man-century of work. Instead, you orchestrated and connected those things, and you learned how to make them cooperate for a bigger thing, right? And so Kai came in with, a pretty ambitious thing that could actually, will help people at scale if it ever goes to a production mode, or for example, the diabetes things which we didn't talk about. The skills you have to harness and understand systems like this, and then the ability to work with other people at the level that you've done is an amazing first step. I don't know if I'd see this kind of conversation with people with 2 to 5 years in, easily. And to me, I'm immensely proud that to just watch this. It's amazing to me. So you should all feel extremely proud. I hope you feel some confidence wherever you go next, because you certainly have earned it, and you certainly show it. And it's well earned and backed by some real substance, like serious substance. So thank you for all the work you put in. I hope you feel like it was worth it. And you certainly have left a very high bar for the next crew.
Good luck.
And if you'd like to, we always might have postgraduate advisors coming in to orchestrate and torture if you're interested.
Also, just that skill of being able to work together, as I know at Merck we have an office in Prague, an office in Singapore, and and all these different hubs, and they don't always, as smooth as far as I've seen, always work really as smooth. Sometimes they do a great job of it, but that's something that if you have that skill, in a lot of large companies remember this class. And as far as even with your presentation, it was smooth enough. You guys knew your turn or what you were doing. And that's even at Merck. I don't mean even at Merck, but it's at Merck. I've watched a lot of presentations, and a lot of times, do you want to go? Do you want to go? Wait, it's my turn. Hold on a second. You said yesterday, and you guys had a smoothness about you that it gives you credibility because you didn't. You guys knew what you were doing, or at least I felt that. So I just thought you guys really also in that aspect were very professional and did a good job.
And I'd like to add and build on both what both Kai and Pete said, which is. I know it seemed like a frustrating aspect of the project in that you didn't know really where you were going, and I kind of joked with it, we wanted to give you a realistic experience, because in the real world, a lot of times you don't know exactly where you're going, you have a general goal, and it's the leaders that can operate well under uncertainty that really will exceed and really become very successful, and I think it's no surprise that you guys executed very well under a lot of uncertainty, so good job.
And as an outsider here, I'm not from Merck, but I'll echo what the other fellows have said. That's true wherever you go. And one comment I made last Friday when I was here is a large part of your success is knowing where to go or who to go to get stuff done. So congratulations.
Everything worked. So thank you all for coming.
What? Want to watch the recordings then?
Yeah.